Hi guys, it's Kier from the Best of Hockey, back with another video, and today we're looking at the top 25 NHL players heading into this season. Now, it's important to know that this list is only focusing on NHL players' last 3 seasons alone, plus a projection of their play for this upcoming season, which is why you might see older players be a little bit lower on this list. And some players that deserve some consideration but didn't make the list are Johnny Gaudreau, Jason Robertson, Mark Stone, JT Miller, David Pastrnak, Mark Scheifele, Alex Ovechkin, Mika Zibanejad, and Evgeny Malkin. Now let's head into the top 25. At 25, Jake Guentzel. He scored 84 points last year for a 91-point pace, and he's going to be 28 this year, so he's in his prime right now. He's a proven goal scorer with pretty good defensive numbers and good possession metrics. He's also great in the playoffs, and I expect him to put up similar numbers this season. At 24, Kyle Connor, another proven goal scorer who broke out last year. He's in his prime at 25, and he's not terribly bad defensively either. He scored at a 97-point pace last year, and I expect his point production to go slightly down this year, maybe around 90 points. So at 23, Patrice Bergeron. Although he's 37 years old, his production has been around 74-point pace for the last 3 years, while being the best defensive forward in the world, winning the Selke this year. His offense will likely dip a bit due to his age, and his team's injuries, but he's still one of the best players right now. At 22, Sebastian Aho. He's a consistent point-per-game player who's in his prime on one of the best teams heading into next year. He's great defensively too, and a great playoff producer, and I can see him putting up similar numbers this season. At 21, Adam Fox. He's one of 4 defensemen on this list, and he's 24, and he's still getting better. He's already won 1 Norris, and he's averaged 74 points in the last 2 seasons, while being over a point per game in this year's playoffs. He's amazing defensively too, and I expect him to be around 70 to 80 points this year. At 20, Patrick Kane. His offensive numbers have been amazing, averaging a 97-point pace the last 3 years while playing on a declining Blackhawks team. He also got the Hart Trophy consideration for 2 out of the last 3 years, but his defensive numbers are not good. And he's 33 years old, playing without any star talent, so I would expect his production to drop to around a point per game. At number 19, Artemi Panarin. He's averaged an 110-point pace for the last 3 years, and he's 30, so he's still likely to produce at a similar rate this year. He's decent defensively, and he's fairly good in the playoffs. At number 18, Steven Stamkos. At 32 years old, he's just had his highest scoring season. He's a great goal scorer who was considered in winning the Hart Trophy this year. He's also not bad defensively and is a good playoff producer. If you think that Panarin is better than Stamkos, let me remind you that Stamkos outperformed him in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I do expect his numbers to drop slightly this year, but he's still a great player. So at number 17, Victor Hedman. He's a Norris Trophy finalist for the past 6 years, and a Conn Smythe winner in 2020. He's arguably the most consistent defenseman in the world. He's great defensively and in the playoffs, and although his production might dip to maybe around 70 points this season, he's still great at the age of 31. At number 16, Roman Josi. The 32-year-old won the Norris in 2020 and was second in voting this year for the Norris while getting Hart consideration for 2 out of the last 3 seasons. He's appropriate defensively too, and his unbelievable season this past year, almost 100 points, has him just edging out Hedman, but I would expect his numbers to drop to around 70 points this upcoming year. At number 15, Brad Marchand. Although being 34 years old and injured heading into this year, he's been in the Hart and Selke Trophy consideration for 5 out of the last 6 years. He scored at an 100-point pace over the last 3 years too, and is also a playoff beast. I'd expect his numbers to dip this year due to his injury and age, however. At number 14, the legend Sidney Crosby. This is an objective rating for Sid at age 35, in my opinion. He scored at an 100-point pace last year and was in Hart and Selke conversation for 2 out of the past 3 years. And he's also very good at scoring in the playoffs. The only reason he is this low is because the others produce slightly better than he does, and he's aging. So I believe at some point his numbers have to regress slightly. At number 13, Jonathan Huberdeau. At 29 years old and coming off a monstrous season, he was 5th in Hart voting. His offense increased from around 90-point pace the previous 2 years to an almost 120-point pace this past season. While not amazing defensively and super consistent in the playoffs, on the Flames I can see him putting around 95 points this year. At number 12, Mitch Marner. At 25 years old, he can still slightly get better than he has already been. He has some Hart and Selke consideration, and his offense has increased from a 90-point pace in 2020 to an 110-point pace in 2022, while improving his defensive play. However, I can't have him higher than this because he lacks consistency and he can't be relied on the biggest stage, so the biggest games. But I can see similar production from him this year. At number 11, Andrei Vasilevskiy. He's arguably the best goalie in the world. He's been consistent in Vezina rankings, and he got Hart Trophy consideration in 2021 while winning the Conn Smythe. He's averaged a 2.42 goals against average and a .919 save percentage over the last 3 seasons, and in the playoffs he's even more incredible, especially in big games. At age 28, he's still in his prime, and I can expect similar production from him this year. At number 10, I have Igor Shesterkin, and I believe he's just surpassed Andrei Vasilevskiy as the best goalie. He just won the Vezina and was third in Hart Trophy rankings, and he might still improve this next year. And since entering the league, he has a 2.31 goals against average and a .928 save percentage. And in the playoffs, he outperformed Vasilevskiy in the Eastern Conference Finals, and arguably in the whole playoffs. So I do expect his numbers to drop a little bit this season, but I have him slightly ahead of Vasilevskiy. At number 9, Mikko Rantanen. He's averaged just over an 100-point pace over the last 2 years. He's very good defensively and received some Hart and Selke consideration last year. He's also incredibly consistent in the playoffs, and he's only 25, so I can expect around 95 to 100 points this year. At number 8, Kirill Kaprizov. After winning the Calder last year and getting Hart consideration both years, his offense is exploding. While he's still decent defensively, and he's dominating the playoffs, especially this past year. At 25, I believe he can still get better, and he'll put up similar numbers, I believe, this upcoming year. So at number 7, I have Aleksander Barkov. At age 27, he's still in his prime. He won a Selke in 2021, came second this year in voting, and got consideration for the Hart both years. And he's averaged 93 points, or a 93-point pace in the last 3 years. And although he needs to be more consistent in the playoffs, he's arguably the league's best two-way player, and I can see him scoring over 100 points this year. Nikita Kucherov is at number 6, and despite missing the whole 2021 regular season, his play since 2020 proves his worth. Despite minimal defense, he scored at an 112-point pace, getting Hart consideration in 2020, and in the playoffs he has 93 points in 71 games since 2020. This year, at age 29, I can see his game staying around the same. At number 5, I have Leon Draisaitl, and I hate having him this low because he's the second best offensive player in the league over the past few years. He's been scoring at exactly a 50-goal pace for the past 4 years, and he has a 121-point pace over the last 3 years, winning himself the Hart, the Art Ross, and the Pearson in 2020, and receiving Hart and Selke Trophy consideration in the past 2 years. He's a playoff beast, and he is only 26 years old, so he's at his prime right now. His only weakness is his defense, which is worse than the other top 4, which is why I have him at 5. And I can expect his points to be similar, so maybe around 115 points this year. At number 4, I have Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, bar none. Winning the Calder in 2020 and the Norris and the Conn Smythe this past season, his offensive production increased from his 72-point pace as a rookie to a 92-point pace at only aged of 23. He dominated the playoffs. He has 60 points in 55 games, and he's so young, which means that he still has more to bring next year. So I can expect another 90-point season from him next year and another Norris Trophy. At number 3, I have his teammate Nathan MacKinnon. As the league's new highest-paid player, he's worth the hype. His last 3 seasons, he scored at exactly an 111-point pace for each of the 3 past years, and is even better in the playoffs with 64 points in 46 games since 2020. He's also pretty good defensively and was voted top 3 in Hart Trophy ratings in 2020 and 2021. At 27, I can expect him to continue the same production for this upcoming year. Now, at number 2, I have Auston Matthews. And it pains me to have him this high because I thought he would be maybe 4th coming into this video, but this 2022 season forced my hand. His offense increased from a 93-point pace to an 119-point pace, only second to you-know-who. He won back-to-back Rocket Richards, won a Hart and a Pearson, and was top 10 in Selke votes. He's a lethal goal scorer, scoring at a 62-goal pace the past 3 seasons, while becoming one of the best defensive forwards too. He's becoming more consistent in the playoffs, and at age 25, he might still improve. I expect similar regular season success and production this year. And at number 1, you already saw this coming, I have Connor McDavid. No one has produced better than he has since arguably Crosby did back in his prime. In the last 3 years, he scored at an 135-point pace, winning back-to-back Art Ross trophies and a Hart and a Pearson in 2021. He's also becoming one of the better defensive offensive players. In his last 3 playoff runs, he has 46 points in just 20 games. That's an 187-point pace in the regular season. And at age 25, I expect similar production from him this year, and hopefully a Stanley Cup as well. So that will do it for my top 25 players heading into the season. Just remember that this is based on the last 3 years and an expectation of what they can bring this year. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know whether you agree or disagree with my ratings, and I will see you in my next video.